Ready to dive into something kind of unsettling? Today, we're all about cybercrime.
Yeah, but not the usual hacker in a hoodie stuff. We're talking about the money.
Right, like where does it come from? Where does it go? The whole financial system behind this digital Wild West.
Exactly. And you might be surprised how organized it all actually is.
Well, that's what we're diving into today. We've got this, frankly, fascinating research on how these cyber games fund themselves, turn stolen data into actual cash, the whole 9 yards.
It's pretty wild, honestly. The more you dig
Yeah.
in, the more you see it's not that different from, like, regular businesses.
What do you mean? Like, they've got their own version of Wall Street, but for illegal stuff?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, you've got your malware creators, your data thieves, money launderers.
Uh,
It's a whole ecosystem.
wow. So, like, specialized roles, almost like a company structure.
Exactly. With different departments and everything, which, when you think about it, makes sense. They need a way to, get started, get that initial funding.
Right. So, how does that work? Where does that first chunk of cash come from?
Well, you've got your classic phishing scams, right?
Right.
Tricking people into giving up their bank details, that kind of thing. More about social engineering than hardcore hacking sometimes.
So, basically, just like really good con artists online.
Exactly. Then you've got what we call cybercrime as a service, basically criminals for hire.
Oh, so like if you need a competitor's website taken down or want some data stolen, these are the guys you call.
Pretty much, although I doubt they have a website or anything. It's
Right.
all very hush-hush. But, yeah, it's like a dark side consultancy firm. Then, of course, there's ransomware, which has gotten huge.
Right, but isn't that just about locking people out of their files? How do they make money off of that?
Well, yeah, it used to be just about that, but now it's all about the threat of leaking sensitive information. Companies are terrified of that, so they're often willing to pay big bucks to avoid it.
So they're not just encrypting files, they're stealing data too.
Oh, absolutely. Data is the new gold, right?
Yeah.
And once they've got it, they can either sell it on the dark web or use it to extort the company directly. It's all about leverage.
That makes a lot of sense. But then once they've got all this money, how do they actually spend it? Like, doesn't it raise red flags depositing huge sums into bank accounts?
Well, that's where things get really interesting. And this is where cryptocurrency has really changed the game for cyber criminals.
Right. I was just reading about that. So how does that work?
Think about it. Bitcoin, with its anonymous transactions, it's like the perfect getaway car for a digital heist.
Because it's almost impossible to trace.
Exactly. And much harder for law enforcement to track than, say, traditional bank transfers. Plus, it's faster, easier to use. They can move large sums of money around the world with, like, a few clicks.
Wow, that's pretty sophisticated. But how do they actually get the money into the banking system then if they want to spend it in the real world?
Ah, well, that's where our friend the money mule comes in.
Okay, I've always been a little fuzzy on that term. What exactly is a money mule?
It's not as exciting as it sounds, unfortunately. Basically, it's an unsuspecting person who gets tricked into transferring illegally acquired money through their own bank account. The criminals might recruit them through fake job offers, work-from-home scams, that sort of thing.
So they think they're doing legitimate work, but really they're helping criminals launder money.
Exactly. They get these stolen funds, often from cryptocurrency exchanges, and then transfer them to accounts controlled by the cyber criminals, usually in countries with less strict banking regulations.
Wow, that's pretty scary. Especially for those people who get caught unaware, they could face serious legal consequences.
Oh, absolutely. It's a huge problem, and a lot of people get ensnared in these schemes without even realizing it. That's why it's so important to be really careful about who you're dealing with online and what information you share. Anyone can become a victim of cybercrime, even if you think you're tech savvy.
That's a good point. So it sounds like this whole process from the initial crime to actually getting the money is incredibly complex and kind of scary when you think about how much planning goes into it.
It is, and organized. Our research actually walked through this hypothetical cyber heist, kind of step by step.
hmm
It's impressive in a weird way.
Like, what's involved? Walk us through it.
Okay, so first you've got a group of, let's say, malware developers, right? They create this really nasty piece of code designed to steal banking information.
And they just send it out randomly, hoping someone clicks on it.
Not quite. They'll often use something called the phishing campaign. Basically, they send out tons of emails disguised to look like they're from a legitimate source, like a bank or maybe a store you shop at online, something people would trust.
Right, so you get an email that looks totally legit, you click on a link, and boom, you're infected.
Exactly. And often, the malware is designed to be completely silent so you don't even know it's there, quietly collecting your information in the background. It's pretty insidious.
That is insidious. And then what? They've got your info. What do they do with it?
So they wait until they've gathered enough stolen data, credit card numbers, logins, all that. And then they've got choice. They can either cash out themselves using stolen credit cards to buy stuff or withdraw money, or
Or sell it on to someone else, right? Someone who specializes in that sort of thing.
exactly. They sell it on the dark web to the highest bidder. And that's often where the money laundering part comes in, right?
Yeah.
Because they need a way to clean that money, make it look like it came from legitimate sources. So they use money mules, as we talked about, to move the funds around, make it harder to trace back to them.
And then finally, convert it to cryptocurrency.
Often, yes.
Mm.
Because once it's in cryptocurrency, it's even harder to track. It's like just disappears into the ether.
It really is like a whole other world with its own rules and systems. It's amazing in a scary sort of way to see how complex and organized it all is.
It really is. And it's only getting more sophisticated, which is kind of worrying,
Yeah.
especially with cryptocurrency becoming more mainstream.
Right, because the more integrated it becomes with legitimate businesses, the harder it is to track the illegal activity. Right?
Exactly. It's something to think about, for sure, because it could make things even easier for cyber criminals in the future.
Well, that's a thought to leave us with.